before coming again, which is fantastic. So today is about Colourblind Plus, the online version, of course, of Colourblind Plus, and the format's going to be pretty similar to those that we had before, for those of you who have joined in before. Do a little bit of an introduction where the product came from and what it's about. We are going to have a little play. So we've got a small group today, but actually that's ideal because one of the reasons for developing Colourblind Plus was to be able to work with smaller groups. And then again, we're going to have a look at the back end as it's delivered via this experientiallearningtools.com. So again, if you have questions, then please fire them in as we go through. Similarly, I'm going to let you have an experience of it. So if you can't or don't want to take part, can you drop Kim a private chat message now? Because otherwise we're going to assume that the three of you are going to join in here. And what we'll do is I'll actually get Kim to join in one of the paired activities. So Kim, if you can set that up in the background. So we're going to start with a paired activity. So we'll do that as two pairs of two. And if anyone else joins, then between now and starting, we'll figure that out. So a little bit of background on Colourblind Plus. Can you just let me know if you're familiar with the original Colourblind product? I know Marcus is. Zaim, are you familiar with the original Colourblind product?
Yes, I've experienced it once.
You have, great, okay. Yeah. And what about you, Ananda?
Only on the previous demonstration.
Okay. So that's fine. That would be that's ideal. So you will know, not surprisingly, Colourblind Plus was developed from that original Colourblind product, and now it's kind of 20 plus years ago. And what happened was we had a number of consultants who were contacting my colleague Jeff. Jeff is our design director who created the original Colourblind, and was saying, you know, we really enjoy using Colourblind, but we've been using it for 20 years. You know, we'd really like another version. Can you create it for us? So I'm not quite sure whether the facilitators were getting a little bit bored with using the original Colourblind, or whether indeed they were coming around to having some participants who'd maybe used it before. So we're not really quite sure. And actually in the interim, Jeff had created another product which was ideally suited to be a follow-on from Colourblind called Symbols. And I think some of you may already have been involved with that, and we will be touching on Symbols at another date. But for us and for Jeff, really the design issue here was we don't really want to help people get better at doing Colourblind. Like any experiential activity, the idea of using the activity is to create some kind of simulated environment where people can practice or rehearse or build more skills in a particular area. So it would have been very easy to create different shapes for Colourblind and put that out as another version, but really that we felt, and Jeff felt, that didn't add enough to the original product. So what Jeff did was to go back and look at how groups have approached solving Colourblind over that 20-year period, and he noticed a number of similarities, and I think you'll even have seen this if you joined the online version that we did with Colourblind a week or two ago. So the first thing is groups can often easily mistake one shape for another. And if I put out the 6 different Colourblind shapes, many people who are not familiar with the activity would say, well, how could people mistake these, because they really look quite different. The second factor in the original Colourblind was that success can come quickly. So groups can make some assumptions and guess, but they tend not to check them. So you can have some groups that finish early, maybe not having checked the assumptions, and are maybe just a little bit lucky almost. So that's a factor that sometimes happens. And then the third thing is, and certainly I experienced this with the group that we ran live, and if you're interested in it, I urge you to go back and have a look at the recording. So even if you have some people with some experience of running and using Colourblind before, it is actually still quite difficult to transfer that knowledge to others. And for many, that's a good piece of learning on its own. So we would often say, even if you've got a few people who maybe have done the activity before, don't be put off because this idea of how do you transfer knowledge is still a bit of a challenge. And then the final thing is that giving the shapes a name or jargon can be a good tactic. Not always, and sometimes that causes problems, particularly if people don't share what that jargon is. So Jeff looked at all of these things when he started to develop the Colourblind Plus version. So I think you've said you're all familiar with the original version. So you'll be aware then of when you give the verbal brief. The verbal brief for what we call the large group version in Colourblind Plus is identical to that in Colourblind. So if you imagine you've got a group coming together, there may be many of them have done Colourblind, they hear the brief, which is, I've started with a complete set of shapes, I've taken 2 out, your group is to decide the colour and the shape of the 2 missing pieces. That brief is identical in Colourblind Plus. So, and I'll give you an appreciation of that shortly. However, in Colourblind Plus, there are 2 additional ways to use the activity. As I mentioned, the first is a paired activity, it takes around 5 minutes. And Colourblind and Colourblind Plus, the larger group, can take anything from 20 to 45 minutes. So if you're looking for a quick icebreaker or warm up or progression of activities, then having this paired activity can be quite useful. And the second thing is that Colourblind Plus, can be done with a much smaller group. So typically we would say you need a minimum really of 6 people to run Colourblind to have a good spread of shapes. But we have a version in Colourblind Plus where you can do it with as few as 3 and probably a maximum of 6 people. So, those are the 2 things that are quite different about Colourblind Plus. And again, that's been used worldwide since 2012. But of course, like everything else, when we started to move into the pandemic in March last year, that kind of stopped. So, like Colourblind, we launched Colourblind Plus on Google Drive in the summer of last year. Again, we knew it's not a long-term solution, but it was really good for prototyping and testing. Again, you'll be aware if you've joined us before that we started our own platform in June, and following on from Colourblind, Colourblind Plus was actually only launched a matter of weeks ago. So I think this is the first group that I've had a discussion with about Colourblind Plus. So, Colourblind Plus, so let's have a little look at how this works, and we'll have a little play. So let me just check. Welcome, Gabriella. I take it you're hearing me okay? Can you just switch on your mic and just check, Gabriella, that you're able to hear and contribute?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I can hear you very well.
Excellent, great. So, Kim, if you could maybe set this up just for 2 pairs. So we're going to have
ready to
2
go.
pairs. Great, okay. So I'm just going to do this in the background. So again, you're going to get an email shortly from the platform. So if you could look out for that in the same email that you used to register here. Great. So let me just change this a second. Okay, so I've got those 4 pairs. Okay, so if you could check your email for me, you should now have an invitation. So can you just give me a little thumbs up if you've got your invitation? You have, Marcus. Great. Okay.
Yes.
So can you click on that for me, Marcus?
View. You'll be able. We haven't started this session, haven't you? Yeah.
No, I haven't. Okay. So that's great. So if the others could just let me know if you've received the email and click on it for me, and just check you can get to that same screen. Just log in as, you don't need to log in, just click the link as a guest. So Zaim, do you have it?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Ananda?
Yes.
You do. And Gabriella?
Yes, I have it now.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome, Dave. We've actually just set up the little pairs version, so that's going to head on. So we've already distributed those assets, but that's fine. I'll get you to join in just a second. Okay, so you go back. Sorry. Too many buttons to press. So you will have received that email, and when I start the activity, it's going to reveal 3 shapes to you, and I'm going to put you into 2 separate breakout rooms. Okay. So you'll each have 3 shapes, and what I want you to do is, in discussion with your partner, try to identify which of the 3 shapes that you have doesn't have an identical shape in your partner's set. Okay. So 2 of your 3 shapes will match exactly with your partner's and 1 won't. And the way you'll try to find that out is simply through some verbal description. Okay. When the pair believes that you have the complete answer, then they should leave the breakout room and come back into plenary. And we'll give you probably a maximum of 5 minutes on this. So any questions on this before I put you into some breakout rooms?
Not so far.
Not so far. Good. That's what I like to hear. So I'm going to let me move. I'm going to have to move people. Just give me a little second. So Zaim and Gabriella. And Ananda and Marcus are going to work together. Okay, so Dave, I've put you into just to listen to Ananda and Marcus, and Kim is going to be in with Gabriella and Zaim. Okay, so I'm going to put you into those rooms. Please join them, and I'm going to start the activity when you've joined those rooms. Okay, Ananda, can you join that breakout room 1? Ananda, are you hearing me okay? Great. So I think people are just coming back. Marcus, give us a little minute. Ananda's still leaving.
Mhm.
So just waiting on Zaim and Kim to come back. Good. I was a little afraid that we'd maybe put off Gabriella and Zaim from coming back there, but glad to see you back. So just give me some immediate thoughts as participants. What did you think of that? That was a very quick 5-minute exercise. Did you get to an answer?
We have the perfect answer.
Okay. Let me hear your perfect answer, Marcus.
We have a different one with a round hole, but these are different ones. We're absolutely sure. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, I'd love your surety, even though you're 100% incorrect.
Yeah, I'm about sure, yeah.
What about Zaim and Gabriella? How did you get on?
To begin with, I messed up with the instructions, so my apologies on my end. But then I think we figured out we had one similar shape, and the other ones we didn't have enough time to actually figure the whole thing out. But what we did, according to Zaim, he did not have the same shapes that I had, other than just one that we share that was a similar one. Zaim, I don't know on your end.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
There's only one shape is not the same, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so meaning that that one of the pieces, mine is different and Gabriella have a different piece.
Correct. Yes. So 2 of the 3 pieces you have would be identical. One is different, and through discussion you're trying to figure out which one is different. So, yeah.
I guess we only got one right then. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, it's not an easy challenge, and one of the interesting things about when we talk about an icebreaker, you know, having spent a long time doing this, often there's a feeling that an icebreaker should be something really easy to get people into it. But if you've got a difficult challenge, I don't think there is anything wrong with giving people a short challenge that sets up the difficulties in communication. So if I'd said to you generally as a group of people, I'm going to give you 3 shapes, all you have to do is to work out the odd one out. You know, 2 shapes are identical, one is different. You know, that doesn't sound intellectually like a difficult task. But when you don't share the same visual frame of reference, when it's someone you don't know, when you're put under pressure, all of these things, communication becomes challenging, you know, and that in its own can be a useful piece of learning for a group. And rather than go straight into a much more challenging 30, 45-minute exercise, if the group is new as it is here, building that learning up in stage by stage is actually a good way to go. So yeah, what was challenging about that activity? Give me some feedback on what was difficult for you. Apart from me perhaps not being clear about the brief, and I know you joined just a little bit after I started doing that, Gabriella, but there is I should have said there's a button on there that you could have clicked on to read the brief out at any time. But what was difficult for you guys when you were trying to work in this way?
For me, the audio was difficult. I had troubles to understand, I must admit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ananda, to understand, that was a bit troubling for me. Time pressure was a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point to go with time pressure. You have to be very quick in making assumptions, in building, in creating a common language. I think it's a good thing with a bit of time pressure. I liked it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Marcus. I mean, it's a real challenge working like this in soft skills development anyway. But when you've got difficulties with technology and audio, it makes it really, really difficult. So yeah, I can understand it. It's quite difficult for Ananda, I suspect too. So let me just share something quickly here. So you also have the ability in this activity to set up a brief, and unfortunately, Dave, we would have set you up as an observer, but we had just hit the button to invite people as you joined, so didn't get a chance to do that. But you can have someone come in and observe, and I think anytime you have an observer or an experiential activity, I think it's always useful, because it's always a skill that's useful to have, to be able to observe behavior and to make some conclusions from it. So these tend to be the challenges that people have about how do you go about describing something? Do you describe it in its constituent parts with lines at angles and numbers of corners, or do you try to give it a collective name as a shape? Because that starts to give you some insight into the way that that person is likely to communicate. And then how does the description change? If you're a good communicator, then you tend to adapt your message to the people who are listening to you. Was there any evidence of that? Again, when you look at leadership, and that can be simply in terms of extroversion or introversion, but also in terms of who takes the lead, who decides to start, and how does that come about, sorry. And then how do you how do you fix misunderstandings? Particularly, I think when you've got people, as we have on this call, from different cultures and different languages, as other than English, probably as a first language, that's really easy to do. And the type of language that people use are quite useful. So we've got a brief there, and we can easily pull some of that back into plenary as we have here. So any questions on the paired activity? I know it's probably new, or even on the shapes.
For how many pairs could you do that?
And you can do it. It's a good question. I think it's up to probably 15 pairs, because again, it will be limited to the number of shapes typically in this. Yeah. Okay. So are you happy with that to move on to the small group activity? Dave, can I just check? Are you okay to take part in this if we include you in this one?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if you could send it to my HMRC email address, that would be helpful, because I'm on a tablet at the moment. But
right,
if it's tricky, you do the Virgin. I've got my iPhone as well, so it's not a problem. No,
that's fine. Kim, sorry, let me go back in.
That's okay. I'll have a quick check and just see.
Yeah, we can always send you the link, Dave, just in the chat here. Would that be easier?
No, I'll tell you what. I'll access it on my iPhone. It's okay. It should be fine, shouldn't it, to do the activity?
Yep, that's fine. I'm just looking. Yeah, it's a Virgin Media one that it's
yeah,
on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm now going to send you another one. Can I suggest that you either delete the original email that you just got for the pairs version, because you're going to get another one, or if this one comes in, just make sure that you click the link on the second email. Otherwise, it's going to give you a bit of a problem. So I'm just doing that just now, and so that invitation has now gone out. So just let me know when it comes in, and I'll give you a bit of a brief on this one before we start.
Yeah, I've received, Graham.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave.
As well.
Gabriella, good.
Yes.
Zaim?
Yep.
Marcus?
Nope.
No.
Not yet.
Okay. It might be on its way. And Ananda, do you have another email from?
Yes, I did.
Great. Good. Okay. I'm just going to share the screen, Marcus. Let me know if it doesn't come through just before we start. So we're now on to the small group version, and one of the ways that you can use this activity is just as I'm doing just now. You could build them up, so you could start in pairs, and then the same pairs move to a more challenging activity as a smaller group, and then eventually onto a larger group. But of course, you could do them all independently. So this time, you're going to receive an email with a link, which will reveal some images of colored shapes. And when you begin the group task here, and it's a task for all of the group, so you have to decide which of the shapes doesn't have an identical shape in the group set. Okay, so there's going to be only one of the shapes which will not have an exact match with any other one that has been issued. Okay, so what you're trying to find is who has the unique shape. Okay, so somewhere amongst you and all the shapes that have been distributed, there is one that is unique. Okay, so people fairly clear with that brief? So you're going to see similar shapes than you had. You might see some new ones, but what we're looking for is what is the unique shape in the set amongst the 5 of you this time?
There's only one piece, right?
There's only one shape that is unique, okay? And what you need to do as a group is to tell me what is that unique shape, okay? So some of you are going to have shapes that others will have copies of. One shape will be unique. Marcus, did your email come through yet?
Not yet, no.
Not yet, okay.
I have sent, Marcus, I've sent you your link in the chat.
Okay. Thanks, Kim.
Okay, so we don't need to go into breakout rooms. We can work here. I'm going to start the activity now. Again, if you've got questions when you see the shapes, then just let me know. Other than that, I'm going to switch my camera off, and you will be able to click on your link to see that brief anytime. Okay, so if you screen will either refresh automatically, or if you need to refresh it, you should be able to see your shape. So I'm looking for you to tell me which is the unique shape in all of the shapes that have been distributed amongst this group. And again, you can leave your cameras on, they don't need to be, but I don't want you to air draw the shapes. I want you to be able to describe them verbally each other. Okay, so I'll let you start now.
So can we ask questions to the group, and then that's how the dynamic will go? I guess?
Absolutely.
Okay, so are your shapes the same color?
No.
No, I have 2 colors.
No.
Okay.
Let me just help there and say that color won't matter. So I'm not interested in the color, but I am interested in the shape.
Okay, shall I start by describing one of my shapes?
Yes, please.
Yep, please.
Okay, so the color doesn't matter, but it's grey. It has 9 sides. Does that make sense? So 9 straight edges around the perimeter. And it has a circle in the middle.
Okay.
A round hole?
A round hole in the middle with 9 sides.
Okay. No, I don't have this shape.
I do.
The opposite of the circle is kind of like a triangle, is it?
It depends which way it's orientated. It has, in terms of the sides, it has 1 long side, and it has another side that is about 2/3 as long as that longest side. And then the others are varying degrees, but shorter.
Okay. I think I might have the same shape.
You think you might have the same shape?
Yes.
Do you want to try and describe yours? And let's see, because you might describe it differently to me.
I'm super visual, so to me it looks like submarine kind of way. It has, as you said, a circle in the middle. Well, not in the middle, but it has...
my circle's not in the middle. My circle's over towards one of the sides, but I see what you mean about submarine.
Correct. Yeah.
If yours might be orientated a different way, but if it was a submarine shape, I think the circle would be on the left-hand side.
Correct.
Okay. That sounds like we have the same shape then.
That's good. So should we describe another one? And I think
yeah,
you did a great job. So I think if you want to continue, if you mind continuing with your shapes, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. So bearing in mind that orientation doesn't matter because they could be orientated differently. My other shape has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 sides again. It has 1 long side, and opposite that long side, it has sort of two what I would call like mountain peaks on the other side. So if you imagine, it might look like a bit, the bottom of it might look a bit like a boat with one long side and then two sides coming off at say 45-degree angles. And then if it is in that sort of boat shape, it has a circle again, and that circle would be on the right-hand side.
Do I understand it right? It's not symmetrical. That's correct. Yeah.
No, it's not symmetrical.
Yeah. I don't have this shape.
I don't think I have it either.
I don't have it either.
Okay, so
is it 9 sides or?
It's 9-sided, and on one of the sides, there's only one long side. All of the others are either what I would call short or medium in comparison to the others. And the long side, the hole or the circle, is more or less opposite, depending on your orientation, the end of that long side. So if you imagine when a kid draws a boat, when a child draws a boat, there would be a long I'm trying to think of the word, keel, and then there would be the side, the fore and the aft of the boat, so the front and the back coming up, and to one of the sides, the circle is right next to where that bow would be, for example. And then opposite the longest side, so if you look completely opposite, there's like a couple of jagged mountains is the way I would describe it. I'm sorry, I've got to go and get my door now. I've got somebody at the door, so I'll leave you to talk amongst yourselves and see if you think anybody else has got that.
Ananda, do you think you have that one?
Yeah, but it's 10 sides actually.
I don't think that the orientation it's relevant, but as long as it kind of seems similar to what Dave was saying, I think it might be a match there. But we can pause for that one because I'm also concerned about time, Marcus. I know that you're
We have
big on
less
time.
than 14 minutes.
Right. So I would go ahead with the next one. This one's perfectly symmetrical and it looks like a rocket ship.
I have one.
Okay. So
I have one as well.
Okay, so I think we all have, well, some of us have it. So
does it look kind of a flying Batman or something, or a rocket ship? Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
It's completely symmetrical. If you fold it in half, it will meet every point, right?
Yes.
I have a question. I have the same shape with Ananda, and Ananda, you told me last time it's not exactly symmetrical. Maybe I'm not that thorough as you are.
I have that one.
But I think it's symmetrical. I would say it's symmetrical.
Okay.
No, I didn't have the one that is symmetrical, but I have that plus shape.
Yeah, so I have this rocket ship as well.
Okay, so yeah, put it aside. We want to find something that is unique.
Yes. So my next one, it looks like a wrench. One side it's slightly smaller than the other side, and it's kind of circular on one of the handle ends, if we can call it that way.
So it has a round cutout, is that correct? Kinds. It has two round cutouts at the side of the handle, and one or two on one corner, a small one and a bigger one, which goes straight down and rounds around the thing, Bobby?
Yes, I think it looks like that.
We have that one.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I would like to confirm that if I may explain my shape, imagine a square, and there's a cutout rounded on two 2 points, 2 edge, and then there's another one on the line. Is that the wrench? Does that make sense to you?
I think we have a cutout on 3 corners. If you could, I have
3
cutout on
corners.
3 corners. Is that correct?
No, I have cut out 2 corners, and one is actually not on the corner. One is at the center of the line.
Yes, yes. One is at the center, and 3 are on the corners, and that gives the wrench.
Yes.
3 on the corners.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
Are we on the same page, Gabriela?
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Okay.
So we still have 10 minutes left, and we need to discover which is the unique type. So I think the 3 of mine have already been matched with some of yours. Do we have any other one volunteer who might like to describe any other shapes?
Only 2 shapes with me
that have been matched?
I think so.
Okay. Would you mind describing the one that probably hasn't been matched at this point?
Okay, the one that I said, imagine a complete square. So right on one edge, there's a rounded cut out. Two of the points from the square is rounded cut out, and then there's another cut out actually right in the middle of the line, not at the edge, not at the 4 points. And it does look like a wrench to me with a very short handle.
I'm keen for you guys to try and progress, and I'm conscious of time, and this is a test. Saeem, I can say that is your wrench, but we probably need Ananda. I'm not sure how good your connection is, but if you could maybe describe, I think you've got a couple of shapes that haven't been described.
Okay. I think I get the wrench one with 3 cut at the edges and 1 at the middle. Then the last shape is the one that I think I had with Marcus before. Is it can be mirrored, but it's not symmetrical. And one has 3 edges, but in 90 degrees, and the other has sharper and wider degrees at the other side. Does it make any sense?
So you have an almost symmetrical shape, you say, Anand?
Yes.
Is it the almost, is this the rocket ship we were talking about?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so, Marcus.
Okay.
It's not the rocket ship.
Okay, good.
Okay. For the purposes of time, because I do want you to move on, I'm going to stop this bit. You are actually really close. I think if you had a bit more time and used the full time, Ananda would be able to describe that, and you would realize the one that she's describing is the one that doesn't have a match. And Ananda, you'd be correct. I think if Dave, I'm not sure if Dave is back yet, but if you counted them, one of those shapes does have 10 sides. The other one actually has nine sides. So I'm going to share and let you view the back end of the platform here so that you can see what I see. Are you seeing that okay just now?
Yep.
Yeah, it may be a little small. Let me see if I can increase it just a touch. that might help a little bit? So in this case, you can see the yellow one. I think that Ananda has in the middle is the one that is unique. It's really interesting when people talk about cultural references, because when Gabriella talks about a wrench here in the UK, we would call it a spanner. And I know some people think that that shape that Ananda has, it looks a little bit like Bart Simpson. In this case, it would be Bart Simpson looking up to the ceiling. But that only helps if you're a fan of The Simpsons and have watched it. So. Yeah. And what is interesting from a group communication point of view for me is when you start to work in pairs, so you develop a language. So Marcus and Ananda were exchanging language there about shapes that they had seen and knew and had talked about, but now you have new shapes. So how do you expand that language out? And it's a real challenge when you bring jargon into an organization. You need to make sure that there is clear and unequivocal understanding of that jargon. The other thing that I guess that will be obvious if the people are familiar with the colorblind shapes is that they tended to be much easier to give a name to. So these shapes tend to be a bit more difficult. Rocket ship is one I hear quite a lot, and wrench is one I hear quite a lot. But for the other ones, it can be quite difficult to put a name to it. So you're forced to try and do the constituent parts of what is a complicated shape. And again, it's a good message, I think, on communication. If you're trying to communicate something in detail, giving people a sense of what it is before you get into the detail can be really useful. But again, it was very obvious the way people are thinking and talking about it. I'm not sure if Dave is back yet, but Dave sounds a bit like me, coming from an engineering background, and is very clear on shapes and angles and lengths of lines and so on, whereas Gabriella stated straight away, I'm a visual person, so that should have been our cue to try and give Gabriella as many picture clues as possible. But yeah, again, did you find that a tougher activity than the paired one?
Than the first one? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of establishing the communication between more people, I think it's more challenging. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess this is a way of kind of moving people through that, particularly if they're inexperienced. It's much easier to get shared dialogue when you have two people conversing, much more difficult when you move to a group of 5 in this case. And if we move to the next one, which would be a group of 10, would be even more of a problem.
Did you have had the strategy of a group breaking itself into breakout rooms and saying, we solve this problem and divide the group in 2 subgroups, and first we check in the subgroups if we have something? Did you have that before?
I haven't had people try that, Marcus, partly because it would take longer, because you need to share that. You need to share that with everyone. So we can't always just subdivide. At some point, the group needs to get together in order to share common meeting. So if people offered to do it, I probably wouldn't encourage them, because I do think you need to force this group communication bit at this stage. Yeah. So that's the second activity that was kind of new when Colourblind Plus. And again, if you're familiar, Gabrielle, I don't think I asked you, are you familiar with the original Colourblind activity?
No, I was not.
I'm not. Okay. So I was explaining that this is a development of that original activity, and the only real change when I show you this version is that these shapes are more difficult to describe. So I'm just going to share the screen again, and rather than do it, I'm just going to show you the back end of the system now and show you how the paired version would work. So are you seeing the system here? Yeah, good. So when you create a session this time, in Colourblind Plus, you can see that there are 3 options. So you can go to the large group, the small group, and the paired group. So these act within the platform as individual activities. So in this case, we still have the 5 people. If we'd moved to the full large group version, when we hit mark as planned, then the system will allocate the shapes. And for your benefit, Gabriella, the brief for the large group version is that I started with a complete set of shapes. I removed 2 shapes before the activity started. Your job as a group is to tell me the color and the shape of the 2 missing pieces. So in the large group version, we're now introducing color, so color does become important. You can see for a group of 5 is quite a small group for the large group version, which means that people get a number of the shapes. So one of the things that will now maybe become a bit clearer when Marcus and you were talking about the wrench shape, if you look down at Dave's shapes on the bottom here, you can see there are actually 2 slightly different shapes. So the way the Colourblind Plus has been developed is really 3 pairs of shapes. So if we look at the top here for Ananda, the one that's a symmetrical rocket ship, in some ways is similar to the Bart Simpson head, depending on how you orientate it. 2 wrench shapes are obviously very similar. One has a slightly wider opening, you can see in Zaim's grey one compared to Dave's red one here. And then the 2 with the circular hole in it to one side are actually quite similar. As Ananda pointed out, one actually has 10 sides, one has 9 sides. So this allocation of 3 pairs of shapes is what makes Colourblind Plus a bit more challenging than the Colourblind activity. But if you're familiar with it, and if you imagine you've got a group who has done Colourblind before, you're looking at things like change management, how groups deal with uncertainty, all of the things that are going on for us right now in the middle of a pandemic, reading them exactly the same brief that they would have had previously in Colourblind, but then getting 6 very different shapes would suddenly be a challenge for them. So, you know, how does a group then react to thinking they're about to tackle a task in a certain way, but finding that they need to be far more detailed in terms of their description? And probably one of the messages that I said earlier, where you can guess, it's much more difficult to guess the shapes that have been removed in Colourblind Plus. So that's how it's set up in the back end of the platform. I suspect most people have seen the platform by now. Gabriella, is this your first chance to see any of our activities on this platform?
Yes.
It is, okay. So when you get access to it, there are 3 relatively simple areas on the left here. One is articles. So in here you will find information on the overview of the activity in terms of its learning objectives, how to set it up, some suggested review questions, so how you might use it. The users area on the left here is those people who have authority and licenses to set up and run. So Kim was acting in the background here for me as a production manager. So what she did at the start here, I can probably show you in this one. So what Kim did was add in all 9 people who had registered for this webinar. And then just before we started, because we know that when people turn up, it's not those that we expect to be. So what she did was delete those who hadn't arrived and then added Dave back in. So that's relatively easy to do right at the start, because in this activity, it's really important that people know who is there. You know who is there as facilitator, so that they get the right number of shapes sent out to each other. So the system will take care of that for you. The final thing you can do is that once you've completed an activity, it does retain it. So one of the things we could have done when Dave joined is we could have said, right, let's finish that activity, let's reduplicate it. And out of 4 people, I could add Dave as another person. That would give me 5 people. I mark it as planned, and it will start to allocate those shapes, and I can move people around the pairs and the observers. So the idea is for us as facilitators, although it may look like you're ready to go, a lot of things can be developed in the background. So that's the platform from an administration point of view. So that's a very quick run through. I'm kind of conscious of time. We're at about 5:02. Just running through here. So this was the brief, as I mentioned, for the large group version. And again, if you're familiar, it's identical to the one that you would have started. These are the differences. So I wouldn't recommend, if it's a group of people like this who've never met before, never worked before, I wouldn't put them straight into Colourblind Plus large group version. That would be a really difficult challenge. But you can probably already see, having moved from the pairs to the group challenge, if I then moved you now into the larger group challenge, you already have an understanding of some of the shapes. You have a language that you've developed together, and that you would probably find that much easier to do as a group. So that is the platform. When you purchase any of the activities, it's a simple login, as you can see here, and you can, the Colourblind Plus is similar price, in fact the same price as the original Colourblind, and it's a 12-month license with a maximum of 2 concurrent sessions. So again, if you have, there are 30 shapes in total, so you could run with a group of 28 in a large group version, but really that's too large a group. I would suggest you break that into a maximum of 14, which is why we provide two seats for it. So a very quick run through. Any questions I can take on Colourblind Plus or the platform?
Yeah, for me, it's still a bit disturbing that I don't get and have this with participants, and I didn't receive the mail this time neither. So that is a bit disturbing. The missing emails, how that come. The first passed very well, but the second one didn't come through.
Yeah, did you delete your original email, Marcus?
No.
No, you maybe want to go back into that thread, because depending on the email system you will have, it will have exactly the same heading for it. So it may actually come back into the same thread. I know that's a problem for me using Gmail, that they can group.
No.
No?
It would be separate. No.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not sure what would have happened. It will go out, but again, you have that backup. As Kim did, you're always able to copy and paste a link to send into someone. So yeah, let me know if it comes through some kind of delay. But obviously the rest went out, so it should have gone out to the same email address.
Normally it comes a bit later, it comes in, but not this time it didn't have. So, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay.
So
very well.
Any other questions on Colourblind Plus? Okay.
So the missing pieces, you can go up to how many people? Also the small group version?
The small group version, you could go up to 11, I think, because it uses 12 pieces in the small group version. 11. But I would suggest probably 6. If you're more than 6 people, you're probably better doing the group version. But you could run, if you had say 10 people, what I'd suggest is running 2 groups of 5 in breakout rooms, the way we did the paired version. Yeah. Yeah. So it allows you to do a kind of shorter duration and smaller group size, so there's a bit more flexibility there.
Graham, in your experience, does this take much longer than Colourblind to do in a virtual environment?
If it's a group who've never done an activity like this, then yes. Yeah.
Roughly how long would you anticipate being needed to successfully complete it?
Yeah, probably another 50% of time. I would suggest adding to it, and probably if they're getting to 30, probably if they're getting to 45 minutes, Dave, they're not going to complete it. They probably, as you started to see there, they maybe have assumed that 2 shapes are the same when they're not. So there comes a point where I think there's no more learning, and you probably have to stop it. So not all groups will get to an answer.
And just one final question: in terms of complexity, do you see this as more difficult than symbols, or on a par, or easier? Or
it's a good question. I think it is probably in the middle between symbols. I think symbols is still a greater degree of challenge, partly because you've got 4 times as many symbols, and partly because the way you figure it out is probably not as easy. So that first kind of 10 minutes in symbols is typically a lot tougher than it would be in Colourblind Plus. So even if the group has never done it before, they'll probably get onto a strategy pretty quickly about describing a single shape. In symbols, there tends to be a bit more confusion. So I would say it's probably somewhere in the middle.
And could you do it sequentially? So do you think you could do Colourblind and then move to Colourblind Plus?
Yes, you could. I mean, you could build them up. I mean, if you're working with a cohort over a year and, you know, it's a real challenge, you could probably do pairs, small group version, large group Colourblind, large group Colourblind Plus, and then symbols. You know, that's probably the order you would take them through. And each step is an increase in both things that they have to do in terms of the challenge and applying the learning from the time before. So that's the beauty of this for me, is you can quickly, you know, as we move from the pairs to the small group, actually get people to start to use some of the things that worked well for them and start to leave behind some of the things that were a challenge. So you're immediately getting them to put those behaviours into practice.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, I'm just over a couple of minutes, so thanks a lot for joining. I didn't get the chance to say thank you to Gabriella before she left there. She had another meeting, because I know it's really difficult if you're thrown into this when people seem to know what they're doing. So thanks all of you for participating, and sorry, Ananda, you didn't have a great connection, but I hope it was still useful for you.